Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining. My name is Jack Alatesh, and today we're going to take a look at the very basics in Elite Dangerous. We're going to cover the cockpit layout, how to get out of a station, fly around, and then dock somewhere else. So let's get started with this. This video is primarily targeted at those who are new to Elite Dangerous or returning players that have not played in a very long time. Alright, so let's just jump right into it. Alright, so the cockpit, as you can see here, we're stuck in the forward view. We are flying in a Sidewinder. This is the noob ship, or the ship that's granted to all new players. And as you can see over here on the status page, I have 1,000 credits to my name. This is a brand new save. There has been nothing done on this, so basically my progress will unfold as the series of tutorials goes along. Alright, so let's take a look at the basic cockpit components. Now, some of these things are going to be fairly self-evident, others not so much. So first off, starting down here in the lower left, you have your current location. You have the type of starport you're in, who owns said starport, the name of the starport that you're in, as well as the faction which owns the starport that you're currently sitting in. Over here you have a little hologram showing you kind of what this sucker looks like. Moving to the right, you have your alignment indicator. This will come into play later. Basically, it shows you whether or not your intended target is in front of you or behind you. In the middle here, you have a menu. Everybody's seen menus. Should be fairly self-explanatory. Working over to the right, you have your ship sitting right in here. And then you have your shields, represented by the 3 rings that are hanging around outside the perimeter of it. Down here at the bottom, you have your hull condition. This is kind of an important one. When this hits 0, you go bang and you go to the rebuy screen. Moving over further to the right, you have your different energy allocations and your capacitor. So you have one for systems, which covers systems such as shields, anything else that may draw energy. You have your engines, which governs the power that is provided to your engines, useful for boosting, moving quickly, etc. And then finally your weapons. And then this guy is just kind of here to kind of, round the whole thing out and tell you that you can, in fact, reset that. We'll get into that in a minute. And then finally, down here on the right, you have your ship's signature, which is basically a graphical representation of how much electromagnetic and infrared, heat or signature your ship is putting off of. Basically, the bigger that guy is, the easier it is for things such as turreted or gimbaled weapons to target you. You show up to scanners at a reasonable rate. It's not supremely useful, but it's something to just kind of look at as you're flying around. Down here you have your fuel consumption. Right now you can see that we're using nothing per hour because we're on dock power. Below it you have 2 lines. The smaller line is what's called the reserve. The reserve is generally used for flying your ship around in space. The idea being that even if your main tank is exhausted, you can still have a little bit of fuel left. Below it you see the main tank. And the main tank is predominantly used for A, refilling the reserve, and B, running your faster than light drive to jump between systems. Then we have 3 status lights. The first one is mass locked. Basically this means you're within a close enough proximity of a large item that you cannot use your frame shift drive to either go into super cruise or to high wake out to another system. Our landing gear is down and our cargo scoop is retracted. Alright. Looking here at the upper left-hand corner, let me go ahead and move the view around to there. Clear all that. Up here, fairly straightforward. Comm panel. So you have your local chat, you have your buddy chat, inbox where you receive messages, notifications. As you can see here, I have the welcome commander notification. Basically it says you're a new pilot, thanks for showing up. And then you have a set of options. In the upper right-hand corner of the screen, you'll notice that there's also some aptly titled info box sitting up here. And it's just going to give you an idea of contacts. Also, anything that may happen, such as if you try and boost while your capacitor is too low, that's also going to show up here in this corner. And then finally you have a clock. The clock is in GMT, or Zulu for those of you more familiar with that. Now, the way that you look around the ship and the way that you use auxiliary functions is by looking to the left and to the right. In this case, I'm playing with an Xbox One controller, so what you can simply do with that is you can just simply click the right stick and then move the stick over. And this can be done to look all over the place. Looking will become an integral part of the gameplay experience here. And as you noticed, a screen popped up when I looked over here. Alright, so this screen is where you're going to generally, this is an overlook as to what's going on nearby you. So you have navigation. Right now we're in LHS 3447, and it's going to show us various features of it, such as the planets, any settlements that may be out there, other stations we can dock at, belt clusters, we'll get to all that in a couple of minutes, all the way down to other systems that are sitting out there. So, for example, if I wanted to target Keeney very quickly, I can just simply lock the destination from there. Also available from here are the galaxy map and the system map. We'll get into those in just a minute. From there you have transactions. These transactions, let's see, okay, deliver data to Ackerman Market in the Aerovate system. Alright, that seems fairly reasonable. We'll take care of that almost straight away. Alright, so the transactions is where you see the missions that you have, the bounties that you may be owed, the price or wanted level or fines that may be on your head, as well as any information about combat bonds or anything else that's either represents an income or outlay of credits. And then you have your contacts, which your contacts are everything in your general area of space. So as we get out, you'll notice that other ships and such appear here. You can also see wakes. Now there are two types of wakes in the game, and wakes pertain to moving between regular travel and a travel mode which is faster than light. A high energy wake means that somebody has jumped from another to another system or towards another star. A low energy wake means they went into super cruise, but we haven't discussed super cruise yet, so you'll hear that again. Alright, and now looking over here at the right panel, this is going to go over some things. This is probably the least used panel in the game. Your status just shows your name, your various ranks. The most important parts of this, though, is going to be obviously your cash sitting right there, your rebuy cost, and your local bounty. If this number is bigger than 0, be careful. It can end up kind of messy. Also, you have your local reputation, but generally you have a pretty good idea of that just jumping into it. Over on the right, you can take a look at your reputation very specifically. You can scroll down and see, okay, well, I'm neutral with all these people, probably because this character is only a few minutes old at this point. You can also take a look at the system status, what influences they're under, etc. Things get very, very complicated. You also have your finance tab, shows you, obviously, finances. And then your statistics that shows you all manner of things towards your character. So it's kind of nifty after you've been playing for several hundred hours to look through here and see lots of numbers there. As a matter of fact, about 20 minutes ago there were lots of numbers there. Now there aren't. And then you can take a look at permits that you may have gained to jump into regions or to systems. Because I bought the game back when it was in its initial beta, I have a lifetime Sol system permit, which, if you'll recall, is the name of our son. Moving over to the next tab, you have the modules that your ship is made up of. Or excuse me, the modules that are built into your ship or installed in your ship. You have the ability to power them on, power them off, etc. So I can turn off life support. Here in the dock, it doesn't make much of a difference. If we were out in space, we would have a few minutes left. Why this is important is because at some point you are going to take damage, and it is possible for your power core to be damaged, put out less power, and this lets you set up different methodologies of what you want powered. So, for example, in my case, thrusters are of utmost priority. So, you see the priority there, we've set it to 1. Also, life support's of utmost priority. What this means is that if there's only a very limited amount of power available, everything with a 2 on it will be turned off, starting from the top and heading towards the bottom until the 1s can be powered. Comes in very handy in more advanced ship fitting scenarios. To the right of that, we have fire groups, and these fire groups, basically on the Xbox controller, you have 2. You have the right trigger and the left trigger. These fire groups allow you to mix and match your weapons in all kinds of different ways. You can also do things such as set up utility for them. And to get rid of a group, you just simply unassign everything and the game takes care of it for you. To the right of there, you have the ship's cargo. So your cargo in your ship, the materials that you may have gathered through planetary exploration, any data that you may have gotten through various means, and synthesis, which is pretty much manufacturing that goes on aboard your ship. Because we have no materials, synthesis is not going to happen. We'll get to that at some point in a future video. Then finally to the right you have functions. So you could set yourself with a particular faction should you happen to be in the correct area. You can see that my landing gear is deployed, cargo scoops retracted, etc., etc., etc. This is probably one of the least used things anywhere except to adjust the interface brightness, because quite frankly at full brightness just, I don't know, seems to wash everything out. One thing that may be interesting to some folks is a leading versus trailing gunsight mode. In my case, I prefer leading. Trailing can be just, I don't know, trailing just does weird things in my brain. Also, you have this option down here to reboot and repair, which will reboot modules in your ship and attempt to make some kind of repairs to them. And then you have sensor scale type, which we'll get into when we look at the sensor disk after getting out of the station. Alright, so let's go ahead and, oh, good grief, there we go. Let's go ahead and look back forward again. I'm going to go ahead and uncage the track IR here. And basically what this lets me do is look around by just simply tilting my head. Looking in this game is extremely important. It is a significant aid to targeting. So we're going to go ahead and we'll return to the service, we'll take a look around, and then we will launch. Alright. And it does appear that when I created the character, I selected the planetary start as opposed to the station start. Alright, so if you happen to have purchased the Horizons expansion, this experience will be available to you. If not, you will not be able to start from a planet. You will start somewhere out there amongst the stars. Alright, so let's go over here and look on the left-hand side. And let's just take a look at the system map and see what all is in this system. Alright, so this little blue icon here is our current location. The orange one is what we may have selected or what we may be trying to route to. This little red icon there shows that I have another ship. Once again, perk of being in beta. If you just bought the game, you're probably not going to have that. Then as you can see, there are many orbital bodies in this. The system is binary. We have 2 suns. We have 2 chunks of asteroid belts. Pretty nifty. Of important note here, within LHS 3447, are these 2 gas giants. Now the cool thing about gas giants is they will generally have rings orbiting around them, and those are going to play very, very prominently in the next video, which is going to discuss how to make money with this whole thing. So for now, let's see, for whatever reason it will not allow us to select it. So let's just go over here to our side panel, we'll look at transactions, and we'll say, okay, let's just head over to Year of 8. So to get to Year of 8, we're going to open the galaxy map. And the galaxy map, oh my, if it comes up this way for everyone, I can see why initial players don't really like it. Easiest thing to do is go over here to the filter windows and just move it over so it's a regular old map. It is much easier to deal with in that capacity. Alright, so we have Year of 8 is going to be targeted automatically because we selected the mission. From there, we're going to take a look at the system map and find out which orbital body contains our goal. Alright, there we are. So Ackerman Market. We'll go ahead and plot a route to Ackerman Market. And then we'll just hit B on the controller, get back out, center up our view here. Alright. And if we look over here on navigation, you can see on the bottom left side, stand by 1 second here, on the bottom left side, that was unexpected. There we go. Alright, you can see on the bottom left side, down here, that our destination is Year of 8. It's 4.16 light years away, and it's 1 jump to get there. Kind of a nice thing to, I don't know, have in your back pocket, so to speak, should you be out banging around and wonder how far it's going to be to get somewhere. So the first thing we're going to do is tell this thing to launch. So in pre-flight checklist, because it's a brand new pilot, this will only appear once. Roll right, roll left, and it has the courtesy of showing you all of the bits and pieces, so to speak. And then making sure that you have some kind of idea as to what you're doing here. So target ahead, primary fire. Alright, for whatever reason that doesn't like it. So we'll just click the mouse button. UI focus. Alright, this is quite the annoying thing here. Really hoping that I can get away from it. Alright, but it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to do this. Oh, well that works. Left shift. Alright. So now it said, yes, you can leave. So we'll go ahead and we'll use the left stick to thrust directly up. Retract our landing gear, and then give it some throttle. I notice it just popped up speeding down in the lower right hand corner above my signature analysis, or whatever you might want to call it. The rule of thumb when you're within a docking area is 100 meters a second. If you're moving any faster than that, things will get mighty ugly for you should you happen to hit another ship and blow the ship up, at which point you instantaneously get a bounty on your head for murder. So generally not great, but if you don't run into other things, you don't have a problem with it. Actually, I have never managed to have a problem with it. Anyhow, your mileage may vary. Alright, it mentioned that there was an incoming message. So let's go have a look at it. Okay, I've been welcomed again. Alright, and basically just telling me, hey, check the nav panel on the left and go play in hyperspace. Alright, so once we're up, now that we're up and we're off the surface of the planet, let's take a look at the sensor disk, which is probably where you'll spend most of your time looking. So once again, we'll go left to right. The first item over here, this little guy, and this sucker right in this region, is going to be your heat gauge. The important factors are this line and this line. The lower of the two lines is going to be with the 100% mark. The top of it is, I believe, the 140% threshold. Everything that your ship does generates heat. Your ship has an ability to dissipate said heat, but if through firing weapons or taking damage or being entirely too close to a sun you overheat, it will do module damage, hull damage, and make you go bang. Looking here in the middle, you have a sensor disk. This basically gives you an idea of where things are in relation to you. As you can see, any contacts that I have are situated some distance behind me. And then finally, over on this side, we have the throttle, as well as an indicator of our current speed right now in meters per second. Of important note is this blue area here. The blue area represents the optimal turning speed for your ship if you're in sublight travel as we are now. So if I have my throttle sitting where it's at now, maxed out, and I try to turn, or I try to move, I try to make any kind of movement, it's not as fast as it could be. However, if I back it down into the blue area, and then give it the same control inputs, you can see it moves much faster. Now, one other thing to note is that the starter ship is a pig. It's a piece of junk. Get rid of it as fast as you can. That will be what we do in the next video. Alright, so what we're going to do here is we're going to speed up to full throttle, and we're going to engage our frame shift drive, the idea being to make a hyper jump to aerovate. Alright, when it charges, we get the countdown, and then off we go. Alright, now we're in what's called witch space, which is basically, I don't know, you can consider it a hyperdrive tunnel. While you're in there, your side displays don't really do you a whole heck of a lot of good. They both say, oh, by the way, the frame shift is running. And when you come out right on top of a star. It is extremely critical that you back the throttle down when you arrive or get your nose away from the star. That yellow line that's there will speed back up. The yellow line sitting there that is disappearing and appearing as I change speeds, that represents the closest safe distance you can be in Super Cruise, which is our current form of travel. Now, when you arrive at any system or when you're moving around within a system, you're going to be using Super Cruise. You'll end up using it quite extensively. Basically, it allows your ship to travel at faster than the speed of light, significantly faster than the speed of light, based on the distance between you and your target, as well as the proximity to any orbital bodies and their gravity. Remember that heat thing that I mentioned? See down there, sitting at 75% heat. And right now the cockpit is just steaming a little. Let's get a little bit closer and see if we can cook a little bit. Alright, maybe not. Alright, well, let's go ahead and let's head over towards Ackerman Market. So once again, we'll use our alignment locator down there. And we'll go ahead and pull Ackerman Market around in front of us. We'll run our throttle up to full. And you notice that the speed indicator down there is now showing numbers in C, which is the speed of light, 1C being the speed of light. So as we get further and further from the star, you'll notice our speed goes up, now shortly here crossing 2C. We'll go ahead and pull this guy around. Now, on the screen in front of us, let's slow down for a minute so I can point these things out. On the screen in front of us, you can see that we have various bits, so to speak, that give us important navigational details. First one is going to be this guy, which is your distance from your target expressed in light seconds. This is the number of seconds that it will take you actual time to get there. Now, as I noted, the blue area in the throttle and sublight speed represents best turning. When you're here in Super Cruise or superluminal travel, it represents optimal speed. The idea is to come in so that your arrival time is between 6 and 7 seconds. At that point, you will slow down in proportion to how close you are to the item without overshooting it. It is possible to overshoot. Overshooting is just a part of it. In some cases, you go right by a planet, then by your intended station, and yeah, that ends rather nice. You just go screaming past it, then you have to slow down and turn around. One other item of note is that all stations you come up to, and in any orbital body that you approach in this manner, the entrance to the station will always be facing the planet. So as you can see right now, it's on the far side of this pretty little planet here, Eravate 5. So he's 14 light seconds from us. There's another ship that's heading towards Ackerman Market. And right now, important note is that I'm playing this in solo. There are two game modes, solo and open. The only difference between the two of them is that in open, other players can see you, you can see other players. When you're in solo, nobody else can see you, but all of your items and such are just simply what they are. So let's say I get to Ackerman Market and they give me millions of credits, and I jump over to open, I'll still have millions of credits. So as mentioned, we're going to keep the arrival time around 7 seconds. We're going to do that by just parking the throttle at about the 75% mark. Once again, using an Xbox controller, so just simply use the throttle until it's blue. When it says safe, disengage, ready, you hit the same key sequence, which on the Xbox controller is you hold down B and press down on the D-pad, and then you will drop out right next to your intended target. So we're on the dark side here, so it's kind of difficult to see, but it absolutely looks cool. So once you're within 7 kilometers of the station that you wish to dock at, you can look down here to the lower left, go to Contacts, select the station, and then request docking. And what that'll do for you is they will assign you to a landing pad. In this case, landing pad 43. Now, the actual entrance in the station, if you go happen to read around on the forums or on Reddit or anything of that nature, you will notice people referring to this thing called the mail slot. That is called the mail slot. That nice bright blue sitting right there. Go ahead and put our landing gear down. Important note is while your landing gear is down, your ship's maximum speed is just over 100 meters a second. As you get used to docking and used to approaching stations, it might not be a bad idea to put that out a little earlier so you don't come in here and slam into the toaster rack, which is the thing outside of the mail slot, or bash the mail slot directly. So landing pad 43, we're sitting over here. Go ahead and orient ourselves to it. And we'll come and slow up a little bit as we get in. The ship handles like a cow on roller skates. Alright. So with the docking indicator, when you get blue, you're good to go. If you're very close to it, you won't have much of a problem. We'll just use the left stick to thrust ourselves down and park ourselves on the pad. So we had a mission to come out here and to deliver some information. So go ahead and pull up station services. We'll go over here to the mission board. Sometimes this thing can take a bit to load. It's really nothing to worry about. I have a feeling the next expansion they are going to improve the load times of these, as back when the game was very new and there was nobody playing it, it was very fast. Now that there are a lot of folks playing it, then, well, it's not exactly as fast. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and claim our reward for Welcome Commander. Alright, thank you for completing registration details, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so they gave us no money, but they did give us a little bit of standing. Alright, well that's all good and fine. In this case, I think we're going to go back to head to the system with the gas giants. So to do this, we're actually going to take a little bit of a different spin at things. We're going to go ahead and simply launch ourselves. And this sucker will pivot around. We're looking out the door. One other item of note when dealing with the mail slot is you always want to make sure you're coming in or leaving on the side with the green lights. Reason being is that guy's sitting right there. If you head on that asp over there in your Sidewinder, you're going to be a smudge across his windshield, and it's going to be just horribly unfortunate. So we're speeding. As long as we don't kill anyone, we're doing just fine. Alright, so now we're leaving the station behind. Unfortunately, they won't let you look behind you, but you can see the ring going away there in the background. Wait for the mast lock light to go out, and then we'll go ahead and jump back into Super Cruise. Alright, so we're no longer mast locked, so we'll press B down on the D-pad. And this is a good time to point out that when you're near items of mass, such as other ships, and you're a very light ship, such as the Sidewinder, you will be slowed in charging of your jump by the relative mass of the other ship. Alright, so now we're off in Super Cruise, and we're free to roam about the system. See if there's anything interesting going on in the system. Let's take a look at the system map here. It doesn't look like there's a whole lot of note going on out in this one. Take a look at these guys. So the one thing to be very aware of, and the reason that you want to look at gas giants, and this will come up again in the future, is this guy right here, which is the hardest thing ever to find for just about every new player I've ever run across. That shows you the amount of metal that is left, or the amount of whatever the ring may be. In this case, the A ring is icy. I believe we're at the bottom of the window. See if I can scroll this thing. Yeah, we're at the bottom of the window. So the rings are icy and they have major reserves of any minerals that they may have had in them. So it's a good idea once you start farming for resource sites, etc., to have an idea of what kind of ships you're going to be getting, what the difficulty of those other ships is going to be. So from here, you can just simply travel around, moving fairly quickly. Once again, the faster you are from orbital bodies, the faster you can move. I'm going to go ahead, jump back into the galaxy map. And we are going to go back to LHS 3447. Let's talk about nomenclature for a second. First off, that red icon that's there says that I do in fact have an eagle sitting there, which is fantastic. We're going to go and sell that sucker straight away, because the next video is going to be how to go from the Sidewinder with no money in your pocket to an eagle. I get that as a perk, you know, for being such an awesome beta individual, etc. Whatever. Anyhow, looking over here at this icon denotes that within that system, there's a community goal going on. And we'll get to those when we begin discussing missions, mission completion, etc. It's a good, just keep in the back of your mind, though, that the community goals are a fantastic way to make yourself some money. They really can't be beat in terms of, in many cases, can't be beat. The one case where they can be beat, though, is when they're somewhere that is a long ways away for a relatively new player. So in this case, Pleiades. If you're unfamiliar with the lore, Pleiades has been, I don't know, quite the interesting place, so to speak. You know, what with everything going on. So anyhow, there's a community goal out in Pleiades, and as you can see from the map here, this guy is 406. Okay, I just cleared it out when I went for the pen. Anyhow, this guy is 406 light years away from us. Now, why that's important is because if you look over here, and it should be under the ship status, under functions, left-hand side, jump range, 7.59 light years, which means the furthest I can jump is not all that far. A decent exploration ship will be around 30 or so. Your fighters will always end up in the 10 to 20 range, regardless of whether or not you mess with the engineers or anything of that nature. Anyhow, as stated, let's go back in here. Let's head back to LHS 3447. Go ahead and look at the system map, and we will just simply plot our arrival to the station in which I have a ship. Alright, there we are. So our course is laid in. Get back to the cockpit here, and it's right near us. So we'll charge up the FSD, and off we go. One other item of note is that depending on the frameshift drive's quality that you have, once again we'll get into that in a future video, they will charge faster or slower. In the case of the Sidewinder, it does not charge quickly at all. Please do not in any way let this ship be any kind of a reference for the level of fidelity of ships that are out there. Basically, this thing is a flying coffin. The idea being to get out of it as fast as you absolutely possibly can. Alright, so we'll immediately get our nose off the stars so we don't end up overheating, although they are really nice to look at as you go by them. Especially ships that afford you a better view. Anyhow, we're headed to Dalton Gateway. So this guy is 91,000 light seconds away. So it's going to take us just a minute to get out there. As you drive around and you fly through space, you'll continually see discovered new signal sources up there on the info panel. With those, unless you're just feeling bored or just overly curious, it's probably not a bad idea to just forget about seeing them. So in many cases, they will not do you a whole lot of good until you know A, what you're looking for, or B, you just simply have found nothing else that you'd like to do in the cosmos today. In my case, I ignore them entirely. While we're on our 91,000 light second cruise out to Dalton Gateway, let's talk about that guy down there, where there's little things moving. So the power distributor. As mentioned, you got systems, engines, and weapons. So systems, when you take some shield damage, your system's capacitor is going to get depleted. You can move power over to it. If you want to go faster in sublight travel, like say for combat, you would simply move them over to engines. Or if you're packing energy weapons, which I believe this ship is, yep, 2 pulse lasers, you would want to move some pips over into weapons. Being able to run this thing and run this guy effectively is an extremely important part of being a competent pilot and elite. And we'll get into that going forward. The save which I deleted in order to make this was in fact sitting at the elite combat rank. I hadn't quite made elite trader-wise, and explorer, nowhere near. I've been out of the bubble a couple of times, but not with enough equipment on my ship to do anything except for shoot things that I might happen to run across. Oh, and I see here that they did give us some money. We have a total of 11,000 credits to our name, which is not much. Should be able to make that in a very, very short amount of time. Now, the obvious question here is, right now we're traveling in 80C, 80 times the speed of light. We can see that our arrival time is ticking down significantly quicker than real time is going by. So the other question is, how fast can this ship possibly go? The fastest I've seen is 2100C, and that involved pointing it out in a random direction from a system and letting it go all through dinner and playing with the kids' time, etc. So your ship can move along quite well, but it takes it a while to get there. That's kind of cool. Almost looks like that one's supposed to be an annunciator icon, but there's nothing there, so we won't sweat it. Now, this trip of 91,000 light seconds, 91,000 light seconds is quite a ways to go, even for most of the human-inhabited systems, which are inside the bubble. And since it's going to be a minute before we get there, let's talk about this whole bubble thing. Let's dive back into our galaxy map. Item of note, when you are in a galaxy map or any other thing that is full screen, your ship is still moving along. So you can still be, I believe you can be interdicted while you're in them as well. I don't know if it'll pull you out, but you'll probably hear the sound effects going on. So this whole bubble thing, this is a general approximation of the bubble that humanity resides in. So I say general because there are fringe systems, there are areas that lie outside of it. Each color in here represents a different member of the power play faction. And the map can be extremely useful for fleshing this out, figuring out what's what and what you want to do with it. Now, to give you an idea of humanity's impact on the general cosmos, it's pretty insignificant. It is a little speck. So here you have Sagittarius A star, which is the supermassive black hole at the center of the universe. Let's see here. Pleiades that we were looking at. Let's go ahead and put this back to map. This little jaunt right here, 400 light years. Takes a long time to get into the center of the galaxy. So there's a lot of places to go, a whole bunch of stuff to explore, and if you end up exploring it all, you end up way outside the bubble with a quickness. Alright, so here we are back sitting in the cockpit, looking downrange, and still just moving ourselves along nicely. One of the other bits of potentially useless trivia that I enjoy about the game is that each one of the nebulas that you see when you're looking at your canopy is something you could reasonably go off and visit. That getting there might be a little trickier than what one would initially suspect, but it can be done. And when you look towards the center of the galaxy, it's obvious that you're looking towards the center of the galaxy. All in all, I think it's a fairly nifty, a very nifty simulation. So you can go visit the nebulas, fly through them, find all manner of different stars, different system layouts. In one case, there's a system sitting out there where one of the planets is orbiting 700,000 light seconds away from the star, and that one will take you a couple of hours to get to, from what I understand. I haven't actually gone and seen it myself, but it would be interesting to do at some point. Now, a lot of folks generally tend to question the ethos of Elite Dangerous. What is there to do? Is it a find-your-own-fun type of sandbox? To some extent, yes. There's actually a lot that one can do, and really I found through my years of playing it so far, the best thing to do is not be too bound to any one role in life. Just simply go out there and do whatever it is you want to do. If you want to shoot things, shoot things. If you want to drive around and get lost, drive around and get lost. If you want to go trading, go trading. A lot of folks will view the game as very grindy or something of that nature. I really disagree. I mean, if the game is grindy and you're complaining about it, then it's obvious that either A, you need to find yourself a different game, or you need to find yourself something different to do in this game. In my case, I spent my the first year playing on a save, doing mostly trading, floating around, got very bored with it, decided to pick up combat, and discovered that combat is a very enjoyable way to make one's living. The only thing that I do kind of lament about the game from time to time is the time it takes you to travel between different things. In this case, like on this trip, be 91,000 light seconds. Probably should have paused the video. Anyhow, we'll be there very, very shortly. So, roughly just, I would say about, I don't know, maybe another minute and a half. As you can see, as we get closer to Dalton Gateway and the planet which it's orbiting around, our speed is dropping. We're not on to 170 something or other odd C. And if you notice, as I look around, you can see the orbital paths of other planetary bodies that are orbiting whatever Dalton Gateway is orbiting. As mentioned, looking is extremely important in this game. Looking is effectively targeting. In my case, using the Xbox controller, I press Y, hit up on the D-pad, it targets whatever I happen to be looking at. So if I find myself in a firefight or if I find myself wanting to target a ship, it's very, very simple and straightforward to do. And in some cases it can be just, I don't know, just look around. The other thing that you'll notice as you go through the game is that the cockpits all look drastically different. Like the next ship, which will be the object of video number 2 in the series, has a very, very nifty cockpit. This one's just kind of, I don't know, bland and more or less uninteresting. Pulling into 3,000 light seconds and still cruising along nicely. See, we're passing inside of an orbital line. There's actually a whole bunch of stuff out here. We have planet A7, A6. And Dalton Gateway would have to be in the middle. We'll go ahead and angle down a little bit. The reason being is because we want to, as much as possible, avoid interference in our drive from those other planets, as we'll just simply slow down our approach to our target. So there we go. Coming from below the plane on anything that you want to go after is also not a bad idea. It's not a bad habit to get into, especially if you have a good headlick solution, such as using track IR as I am, or you happen to have a virtual reality headset. And from what I understand, the Oculus Rift and the Vive in this game with the correct settings are absolutely fantastic. Now while we're looking here, there's 2 conflict zones. There's a low intensity sitting there, and where was that high? Checkpoint. There we go. High intensity conflict zone. For the time being, I would advise staying as far away from those as you possibly can. And any of the ships that you'll have right off the bat, jumping into them is pretty much you're going to get yourself smoked. That being said, there's plenty of combat that you can jump into right off the bat. As I mentioned, we need to keep our arrival time at 6 or 7 seconds, so I went ahead and backed the throttle down. I'll back it out a little bit more till we get back to 6. And the idea here is to keep it in the blue area. And then down in the lower left-hand corner, you see that our arrival point has been called out. We have a distance and speed indicator. When both those bars hit the blue lines, that means that we can drop out of Super Cruise safely, as opposed to an emergency stop, which makes you tumble and damages your hull and is just all kinds of not fun. All right. Coming into Dalton Gateway here, we see that we're coming up on it from somewhat of the backside, so I'm going to swing myself around. See if we can't get into towards facing the front. I think that'll probably get us close enough. If nothing else, we'll just fly around it. Alright, so we should get safe disengage ready here in just a second. And there we are. And anybody who's very, very new to this game and is looking at this video thinking, man, that guy traveled a long way to get next to nowhere. That level of trip is not indicative to a majority of the game. As we'll discuss in the next video, choosing your systems and such is a fairly good idea. In this case, the game chose for me. It's stuck an Eagle here, and we need to sell the Eagle. Can't do it remotely till the next expansion comes out, so here we are. Alright, so with Dalton Gateway, we'll look over here, go to Contacts, and request docking. Alright, pad number 28. Let's go ahead and put all energy over into the engine. speed ourselves up a bit. And let's see if we can just make a nice quick entry to this thing. The only thing that sucks about making real fast entries to these guys, aside from, you know, the obvious station's big, you're not, small things go splat, is when the landing pad is right inside the door. Alright, that guy. Ooh, you hear that? They're like, you need to slow down. No, I don't. Alright, so landing gears down, pad number 28's there. And we overshot. Alright, that shouldn't be too big of a deal. We'll just go ahead and stop our thrust entirely. Use the bottom side thrusters to get ourselves back in the right angle. Another item, a note on landing pads, landing facilities. You can only land on the pad one way. I will agree that it doesn't seem to make a whole ton of sense, but that's the way the game's set up. So if you come in for the wrong way, you got to sit there and yaw, which takes forever, or you just overshoot or do something ridiculous like that with your thrusters to get yourself where you need to go. All right, there we are. So we have now landed, and from here, let's go in here and go through the starport, or excuse me, shipyard. Shipyard's where you buy things. You can also store your ships. You can also take a look at the locations you have ships which are not in the current station. So in this case, we have an Eagle, a very basic Eagle, which is the standard setup. So we're going to go ahead, run down here to options and say, sell my stored ship. And you know what? That'll give me another 40 grand. Excuse me, I think we just may leave it there. You know what? Screw it. We'll go ahead and sell the sucker, because the money-making method coming up in the next video is going to trump that 40 grand with a quickness. But that's all for this video. Thanks for watching, and if you got any comments or if I missed anything huge, please by all means let me know in the comments section below, and I look forward to seeing y'all on future videos. Thanks.